Hey guys, it's another beautiful day on the Ashland Hills Homestead. We're going to be making some garlic rosemary skillet bread. This is one of my favorite breads to make because it's so easy. You don't even have to knead it. So stick with us and we're going to show you from start to finish how we do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to trim this garlic, just the top of the head, and then we're going to pop it on our baking sheet. And we're just going to drizzle it with some olive oil here. And that just makes sure that all the olive oil gets down in between the cloves and just bakes and makes it really delicious and releases a lot more flavor than just putting it in raw. So we're going to stick that under the broiler on low for about 20 minutes. So that's in the oven. Now we're going to go out into the garden and get some rosemary. All right, so we're here with our rosemary, and as you can see here in Oregon, rosemary does really well. It can grow as big as shrubs. So we always have a plethora of rosemary. So we're going to gather a good handful of that. And as you can see, the goats decided to come and help us, and they're ready for their treats. Hey guys, come here. Okay, so we've gathered this rosemary up, and now I'm just basically stripping the leaves from the stem. And I'm just holding the top and pulling it back. And then we're just going to mince it up and pop it right into the bowl. Now we finished chopping, and then I did reserve about a pinch of some longer pieces, and we're going to use those as a decorative touch before we start baking. But I have about 1.5 tablespoons here of our minced up rosemary. So we're going to pop that in the bowl. And then we're going to do 1/2 tablespoon of salt. And it doesn't have to be super accurate. And then we've got 1 packet of yeast, and you can either use rapid rise yeast or active yeast. If you use rapid rise like I'm using, you only have to wait 1/2 hour. If you use the active rise yeast, that needs 1.5 hours. And the nice thing about this bread is you don't have to melt this yeast before. So we're actually skipping a step. And then we're just going to add in our flour. We're going to do 4 1/3 cup of flour. I'm just going to use a butter knife to kind of top this off nicely. Now we're just going to whisk this together. We want to make sure we've got a nice, even distribution of all of the things. And you can certainly make this bread with any herb you want, or no herbs. You can do this without the herbs or the garlic, and then it's super easy. All right, so that's looking good to me. Now we've taken our garlic head out, and you can see it's nice and crispy, and that's what you want. You want it to feel springy and a little mushy. And so it is still warm, so I'm going to kind of tenderly pull this apart and just let these cloves cool off a tiny bit more. You could even roast this head of garlic the night before and then just pop it in the fridge, because really why we're doing it is for the flavor. Woo, those just popped right out. So these guys are all peeled now, and you can see here they're pretty mushy. So we don't have to do much, but I'm gonna run my knife through them. Okay, so now we're gonna pop this in. And I'm not gonna stir it around. And I'll tell you why. The first time I did it like this, I stirred it around and it just kind of made a clumpy mess before I put my water in. So I'm gonna wait to put my water in. All right. So we wanna make sure that we have warm water because this is what's gonna activate your yeast. So it needs to be about 110 degrees. So that's about as hot as your faucet's gonna go. And I let this warm up a little bit, but we're gonna do 2 cups of water. And I'm gonna slowly add it in. And we're gonna start with this whisk, but then we're gonna switch to our hands. Okay, we've kneaded this a couple minutes here. Do not be alarmed if it's sticky. It's gonna be a sticky dough. So what I'm gonna do is wash this off. I scraped off as much as I could, and then I'm gonna wash this off and get my hands wet, and then we're gonna transfer it to a bowl to let it rise for 30 minutes. My hands are wet and we're ready to go. So we're gonna just put a little bit of olive oil around the edge. Don't be shy with your olive oil, especially in this particular recipe, because the reason this bread is so good is because it cooks in this iron skillet that's already seasoned, and we're gonna slather it in olive oil. So the crust is super, super rich and crunchy. So we're just gonna ball that up. And then I'm gonna put a linen cloth over top, and we're gonna walk away and come back in 30 minutes. So it's been 30 minutes, so you can see here it's risen very nicely. That's what you want. And so we're gonna preheat our oven to 400. And all we're gonna do here is prepare our cast iron skillet. So again, I'm just gonna kind of go around the top of this lip and a little bit in the center. And then I'm just gonna use my hand. If you don't like that, you can use a little basting brush, but it doesn't bother me. Now that this is all oiled and we've got a good coating, we're just gonna flip this puppy right in here. And we're gonna center it. And you can see it's got all that nice oil on top from when we oiled the bowl. And we're just gonna place a little sprinkle of salt. And I just find I like that. I like saltier bread. If you don't like salt or you shouldn't have it in your diet, you do have to put a little bit in to activate that yeast, but you can leave that out. And then we're just gonna sprinkle some pretty color up on top. And I like to do that before it rises because that way the gluten kind of grips the herbs and gets them all in there nicely. All right, so we are going to now cover this and let it rise for 30 more minutes. So it's been 30 minutes and you can see here it's expanded nicely. This is what we want. and you can see there's some oil on top of there. So we're doing great, and we're just gonna pop this right into the oven for another 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how brown you like it. And we'll come back and pull it out. Okay, so I've had this in here about 40 minutes, and we're gonna pull it out. And as you can see, it's nice and golden. And all the little garlic pieces are even more caramelized. So we're gonna let this cool off for at least an hour before we cut into it, and then we'll try it. If you liked what you saw today, please subscribe. If you'd like a notification, click the little bell for a ding ding. And we'll see you next time. Happy baking!